Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be how to build and play zBarb in Season 16 for both XP and going higher on the leaderboard. Joining me is going to be one of the best players in Seasonal Hardcore, NCG Mefesto, who is currently part of the Rank 1 group on Seasonal Hardcore and playing that zBarb role. So I'm excited to pick his brain and kind of learn what he has to say about zBarb. Let's get into it. Alrighty, and now I am joined by NCG Mefesto. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. How are things?
Oh, I can't complain. Excited to pick your brain about Barb here. I guess we can just start with zBarb. I'll inspect your gear here. Let's go view profile, inspect, and then you want to just kind of like walk me through the gearing choices and the skills and stuff?
Sure. So gear choices at the moment, starting with weapons, Istavans, just the attack speed that you gain from it. It's the best in slot kind of weapons, especially with sprint. It helps keep your Istavans up. And yeah, it just nothing really compares to it in that regard. You just get too much attack speed. Going to Oculus, Ring, and Zodiac. You need the Zodiac to help burn cooldown to refresh IPs and stuff like that in case you miss someone. Keeping that threatening shout up and whatnot. Oculus, pretty self-explanatory, 85% multiplicative damage for anyone who stands in that area. It's pretty huge. Then 4-piece Rakers. 4-piece Rakers is pretty important, just because you need your all your charge runes. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes with that.
Okay.
The Auric Crown, having the Oak Crown helps you keep permanent IP up. If you have Gogok along with the Oak Crown, you don't even need a Obsod proc or Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. We call it Obsod for some reason. And yeah, so it's just quality of life right there. And then Aquila's basically the thing we picked up with having the Rogue buff. So Seasonal Journey Rogue buff. It just some extra DR. They're probably, as we get higher in Paragon and start pushing like higher stuff, we'll probably swap to a Tal's chest. Just because you can pick up the attack speed from the Tal's chest.
Oh, okay.
That might be more beneficial than the Aquila DR. So kind of a interesting thought.
Okay.
So my neck, I'm running the Star at the moment. I've kind of been finding a happy medium at the moment of pickup radius versus reduction / moving quickly, just because I'm still lowish Paragon.
I was gonna say that's like really rare, isn't it? Always Rondell's Locket.
Yeah, so for farming, Rondell's Locket is what I'd recommend, but like I only just made the switch from Pig Sticker and Storm Shield and running Sword and Board, just because low Paragon, you're like doing speed like 106s with that charge setup, and you just occasionally can get one shot by stuff. So I kind of went with the Star just to help if I was charging through like a Fire Chains or something like that. Nice kind of healing, especially because with the Z-Monk setup that we run, that Mike was showing, it doesn't really give any healing. For the most part, it gives a shield, but I don't really have a solid way of getting health back so much. So the Star is kind of nice in that regard.
Okay.
And then with our setup that I normally run strong arms for our setup. We were doing some higher stuff, and we wanted our Z-Monk to be safe, so 119s with charge. So I put on Nemesis. But normally for our speeds, our Z-Monk will drop spirit cards and run Nems and strong arms. So normally I'm running strong arms as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of on that note, you have two ways of proccing strong arms. One is rage flip, so your ancient spear, and the other is your charge. But the thing to note about your charge is the having 4-piece rakers. By giving every rune, your charge only knocks back at the end of your charge. So if you charge through a whole bunch of mobs, like do a nice long charge,
Mm-hmm.
it won't knock back and apply strong arms on any of the mobs that you hit until your end animation. It kind of knocks back.
Yeah, so not the ones you pass through,
Yeah.
but the ones you end on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just something to be of note when you're kind of trying to apply strong arms and making sure things are properly debuffed so that they're taking damage.
Okay, cool.
Chelanics, really important, especially with the charge barb meta. It's better than it's really important for it just because of the movement speed, adding damage through standoff. So obviously everything in this game has diminishing returns, and that as the multiplier gets higher, it's less a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
But baseline, it's almost a 1% movement speed is 1% multiplicative to the barb as is. So it's almost a 40% damage increase for your charge barb.
Yeah, because they cube that standoff.
Yep. So that's important. And then in the cube gear, the gear choices, you can run Band of Might, Pride of Cassius for the permanent IP uptime, and then Ingeome is kind of, you don't really have a really nice like weapon spot for, but Ingeome is probably the way to go, especially for speeds. But if you start going higher with it and Ingeome uptime starts going down, you can consider something like Wall of Man or something like that.
Okay. And I know you talked mostly about the skills. Is there anything else to kind of point out here? Or like the rotation of while you're playing and stuff?
I mean, it's really important to keep up force march, so your sprint and your chelanics on your barb, just because you're going to be trying to increase their damage. Like 20% multiplicative almost. It doesn't end up actually being quite that high with all the other ones because of the diminishing returns, like I was saying. But just keeping that up as much as possible is really important, but finding that medium between pulling stuff in and keeping your chelanics and sprint up, because you want to make sure if there's like an elite off to the side, you're getting it into the pack. If there's other mobs, like you really got to let vile wards do their work for the charge barb as well. Like I think it's 35% per mob hit in the charge. Yeah, 5. So each mob you bring in, like let's say you bring in 4 more mobs, that's potentially like another 100% on top. So that's a pretty crazy amount of damage that you're adding on. So just finding that medium between going, like giving your sprint, war cry, threatening shout, IP, like pressing those, and then heading out maybe a charge or 2 and pulling stuff in to that pack that you're trying to kill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the passives?
Passives. So your 2 required ones are Nerves of Steel and Inspiring. The other 2 are kind of up for. Barb doesn't really have any great ones. The only other one that's required is if you're running Sword and Board. So if you're running the Storm Shield and Pig Sticker because you're low Paragon and really you just don't have the health pool to soak up hits yet, you want to run the Sword and Board passive because it's 30% damage reduction and 20% RCR.
Yeah, so you can wear like a storm shield and a pig sticker if you are like, kind of throwing together a zBarb.
Yep. I would recommend it at the beginning. That's what I started off with. You're so squishy when you start off. Like, you just don't have the Paragon to really be able to survive. So I would 100% start with a Pig Sticker and Storm Shield, and then run Sword and Board.
And we didn't go over the boot slot, but it's kind of self-explanatory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, illusory boots. They let you charge through walls and walk through mobs. It's real nice. It plays a lot better.
Yeah, and as a side note, you know, they only drop in Act 2 bounties. So for newer players, that's how you get them, is bounties.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And so then, like, I guess the general responsibilities of the Barb during the Rift, it's your job to pick up the progression globes and the health globes, and you want to be kind of telling your team where to set up, right?
In this kind of meta, it's kind of a hard one in that if you're doing low speeds, like, you're moving really quickly, and it's very taxing if you're trying to, like, decide setup points a lot. So we've kind of erred on, and this is because we play like hours and hours of it on end. So we've kind of decided that you just go to the next elite pack for the most part, unless you see like a real sizable amount of trash with no elite on it. But for the most part, it's just easier to turn your brain off and go to the next elite pack.
Yeah.
And so you keep your Chelanics up on your allies and your sprint and IP, and then you get to the pack, and then you just pull as much stuff to that pack as you can while keeping your buffs up on your party.
Okay.
And whatnot, and then it's dead and you move. It should, like, the runs should be really quick. If you're doing the optimal like speed for doing the XP, like, you're looking at a 2 to 3 minute run, and 3 minutes starting to get long already. Like, that should be like as bad of a rift as you can find. Should be 3 minutes.
Yeah, speed is king. You want to be at like 2.5.
Ever since they nerfed the monster progression and made it more about the rift turn-in, especially with pools double dipping on your turn-in, you just, like, the turn-ins where it's at, so you want to be doing as many turn-ins as possible.
For newer players, you want to explain what you mean by pools double dipping?
So pools are supposed to give you 25% increased experience, but for whatever reason, on the turn-in, they give more like 35%, I believe. It's a weird mechanic. I don't remember the exact reasons why, but they just give a lot more actual experience than the 25%.
When you, like, click Auric in town to turn in the rift, you mean?
So when you turn in the rift and gain that XP from finishing the rift, that is increased far more than the 25% that the pool says. But otherwise, the pools, when killing mobs, actually do give 25%.
So once you're high Paragon and the Paragon levels are coming slower, it's very important to keep those pool stacks up.
Yeah, even if you're just doing like like, you're not quite at the point where it makes sense to keep gathering pools. If, like, you have a moment in town because you're waiting for someone, go grab a pool for the turn-in. Like, it just with the double dip effect, it's really nice for.
And this is why, you know, a lot of your higher tier groups will play games on normal. That way they can just run around and grab pools and not worry about any mobs hitting them for any damage, right?
Exactly. There's definitely, like, we're always out looking for pools and downtime and whatnot, and there's actually been a few people who have died to being in a T13 game because they didn't know that they're in a T13.
Oh man, yeah.
Yep.
That's brutal. So, just real quickly, what is there anything that changes for, like, pushing, or say you're going higher, you're not speed running necessarily, you're like trying to level up your gems or something?
So if you're going higher, you're doing stuff that takes a little bit longer. The playstyle changes a little bit differently. Your build stays essentially the same unless you're not able to take the damage incoming damage. But same skills and everything, but instead you just, rather than going elite to elite, you want to find that nice open spot and just set up there and then pull everything to that. And this is where you really need to put on your wheels on your charge barb and go out and like really find mobs to bring in, because you're trying to kill the elites that are there, and as you go higher, the demon hunter is going to struggle more and more with doing that, and it's more the responsibility of the charge barb to really get them down. So you need to bring in those mobs for the vile wards, the area damage and whatnot, to like actually bring the elite's health down to the point where the demon hunter can finish it off. So at that point in time, the playstyle changes a little bit more, and it focuses more on bringing mobs in rather than keeping that sprint up on your allies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then to kind of end the video, what are kind of your plans the rest of the season? Are you going to be, is there certain classes you're going to be going for #1 and 4s and all that?
So, well, last season, we did really well in 4s. I was zBarbing for our 4s group for the majority. Occasionally, when I wasn't around, they'd do a swap up and Dis would barb. But we ended up getting down the 146, which was rank 1 world. Rank 2 was a 144 clear, which came out of China. So we're thinking we might be able to down the 150 this season. We'll have to see. There's still a lot of stuff up in the air with the new like lawn builds. It's kind of because you're so limited on the ring slots, you're not able to pick up Perini, which is kind of a massive DR. So we're not sure how that'll play out with hardcore yet. But we've done some initial testing, and we're feeling pretty hopeful about it.
And what about solo for you?
Solo, I'm gonna do barb as always. Some seasons I don't necessarily push too hard because I'm just like, I'll just plug a couple of keys and get on the leaderboard. But it all just depends on like my work schedule and whatnot and how much time I have. But 4s is the focus for me, just because not being able to play that much and keep up in Paragon, it's hard to compete necessarily to the same degree. But yeah, I'm gonna head for the solo barb for sure, and if I have time, maybe I'll just throw some stuff at some other leaderboards as well. Who knows? Cool.
Okay. Well, yeah, good job, man. This video's been about the perfect length, so I appreciate you kind of letting me pick your brain about barb.
Always happy to help.
All right, well, take it easy, man.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you. Yep. Alrighty, that's going to do it for this video on zBarb featuring Mefesto. If you have any questions, drop it down in the comments, and I'll do my best to help you out. As always, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Peace.